To know more of the ASEAN's economic challenges following the pandemic, TVRI World reporter Suhavit Tadore is now with Head of Fiscal Policy Agency from the Ministry of Finance, Febrio Cacharibu. Suhavit, go ahead.
Well, thank you very much, Audrey. I'm currently here at Bali Nusa Dua Convention Center in Nusa Dua, Bali. And yes, you're correct that joining me now is the Head of Fiscal Policy Agency from the Ministry of Finance, Pak Febrio Cacharibu. Pak Febrio, thank you very much for your time. It's truly an honor. We truly appreciate your time amidst your busy time. Thank you for joining us here live on TVRI World's Focus today. Pak Febrio, there are a number of questions that I'd like to ask. After recovering and strengthening together with G20 countries last year, Indonesia is now leading ASEAN member states to be the epicenter of growth as the Indonesia's ASEAN chairmanship theme, ASEAN Matters, the epicentrum of growth. How has the region's economy fared since the pandemic, Pak Febrio?
Actually quite promising. We see that ASEAN really as epicentrum of growth, particularly this year, even amidst the situation that we are facing globally and continuously, even since last year, everybody hopefully also following that global economy last year wasn't really in a good situation. A lot of challenges, especially high inflation in a lot of countries in the US, in Europe, and also in many parts of Asia and also many parts of the world. Indonesia, on the other hand, and also ASEAN in general, did quite well last year in 2022. Indonesia's economic growth, for example, we managed to pull 5.3% economic growth last year, which is quite remarkable given the circumstances last year. And going into this 2023, we also still have a promising and very potential performance of the economy. Not only Indonesia, some of you probably following that also the IMF has increased their forecast about Indonesia's economy for 2023. We, government of Indonesia, still very optimistic to see that our economic growth this year is going to be above 5%. And not only that, we keep seeing that the signs of unemployment going down, unemployment rate going down, and also poverty rate also keep falling down. And this is going to give us really a good quality of economic growth. And we would like to also to share that with ASEAN. And we see that ASEAN with countries like Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia, Philippines, we are all sharing similar fashion of recovery. And this is good testimony for the world as well, when the world is still facing a lot of uncertainties, especially in terms of the economic growth and also managing their inflation. ASEAN will really perform and perform as an example of how a region can also work together, but also share the prosperity together and becoming good sources of growth for the economy of the world.
Right, Pak Febrio. I'd like to highlight the finance sector. Indonesia's chairmanship in ASEAN has identified 3 priority economic deliverables, or PEDs. What are the priority agenda's focal points that actually have, among others?
So these are very often 3 priorities in our finance track of ASEAN chairmanship this year. The first one is recovery and rebuilding. Clearly, everybody can share how deep the correction of the economic activity back in 2020 up to even 2021. Indonesia, on this regard, recovered quite strongly and quite quickly as well. But we've been always talking about scarring effect of the pandemic, and we would like to see further results of this recovery to go to be enjoyed by a lot more people in our country. That's why we would like to see that our poverty rate to keep going down, and also unemployment rate, which means that we are actually not only having a good economic recovery, but also creating more jobs. And that means that a lot more people will be able to enjoy the recovery itself. So that's the first one, the recovery. The second one is we see the great potential for Indonesia and also ASEAN to further develop our digital economy. We see how digital economy was really one of the backbones of the recovery of Indonesian economy, especially when we had to stop our activity outside. And digital, especially e-commerce, and also how we can work online, work from home, school from home. Clearly, when we invest a lot in infrastructure of IT, that clearly helps. And we would like to further take advantage of this development further, Indonesia and also ASEAN. So that's the second priority. And on that, I would like to emphasize on our priority on digital economy to further benefiting the small medium enterprises that like you see in all of the places that we are showing, that our small medium enterprises are thriving, especially we can also help further with this digital economy ahead. And last but not least, our third priority is about how to transform our economy regionally to a more sustainable green economy. That means that this will need financing. This will lead the mobility from the capital market as well to see green projects and to create more jobs in this new transformative economy going into green economy further.
Yeah, but Fabio, let's talk about the net zero emission. How is the ASEAN progressing with the global climate change commitment to achieve net zero emission?
It is interesting to see that there is a little bit of disparity between ASEAN countries on this agenda. Indonesia is not only leading globally, especially among developing countries, about the climate change agenda. We are quite aggressive and quite strong in terms of delivering reforms for us to be able to deliver more of the results from this climate change agenda. But we see that in ASEAN, it is not as equal in terms of their not only capacity, but also even the familiarity. Indonesia, for example, among our millennials or younger, over 80% of our millennials or younger has a very good understanding about the risk of climate change when we know that Indonesia is one of the countries with highest risk of the climate change risk, when you have more natural disasters and especially hydro-related natural disasters, because we are in an area of archipelagic and also ring of fire, so to speak. So our aware of the climate change agenda. It is a matter of how we transition our economy carefully towards more green. So that's why we raise the issue of how to transition our economy from some energy still a lot relying on fossil fuel, and then to move to green. It cannot happen as a jump. Should be with a transition. And this transition ideas really catching on with a lot of countries in ASEAN as the developing countries. They understand that it is going to cost some money for an economy to transform from fossil fuel-based energy, for example, to a green one. It will need some transition.
Fabio, thank you very much for your time. We truly appreciate your time. And that was very insightful, Fabio. And Audrey, that concludes my interview with Head of Fiscal Policy Agency from the Ministry of Finance, Fabio Kacaribu. In the meantime, I'm Zul Hafiz Tadore with the camera person, Danu Dirja, reporting live for TVRI World. Back to you now, Audrey.
Thank you so much, Papa Fabio, for your expertise, and Zul Hafiz Tadore for your report. Now let's move on to our next item. For our Ramadan segment for today, see the Lats Mosque in Jakarta, which has been home to Indonesian Chinese converts. Also, for the first time, Ramadan decoration festivals are upon public in West London as a form of